Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining me is our fabulous co-host and fellow traveler, Dan, the Dan Noodles man, the Raleigh fingers of Wargaming. How's it going, Dan?
You can't imagine what I ate tonight.
Harold, mushrooms? Was it mushrooms?
Well, yeah. But Harold, it would blow your mind. If ever you come around these parts, obviously you invited to my humble home, mia casa, sua casa, you're going to have a pappardelle duck morel cream pasta.
I put on 47 pounds just when you said that out loud. Anyway, joining us is our very special actual guest, Mr. Harold Buchanan. Harold, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, my great pleasure to be here with you two intellects. Dan, I don't know
you know what I mean. You don't know. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Don't get him started. Now he's going.
That was a shot, Harold. And first of all, I want to say, Harold, I love you, and you are one of the best judges of character I have ever met. You read me 1,000,000%. You know me as if we've lived together.
And yet he still agrees to come on the show. So
the guy's amazing. He freaks me out.
Anyway,
we're separated by the U.S. Border Security Patrol, so I'm okay.
That's true. Yeah, you got to count on somebody, right? Anyway, in less than 2 weeks, Harold, SD Hist Con organization, which we're going to call the org from now on, I think, it will be hosting its looks like semi-annual, demi-annual. I'm not sure what the right term is. Twice a year online convention, which you guys have called the Second Front. I am going to throw this in the chat for anybody that... Oops, hold on a second. I got to get the right...
Did you say you're going to call it whore?
Second Front.
No, you said something about we're going to call it whore.
I'm pretty sure that's not what I said.
He said he's going to call, instead of saying SD Hist, Dan, I think he wants to say the org. Because I think
the org.
Because Hist isn't a word.
Because
the org. The short for organization, you know.
Oh, for God's sake, man.
It was funny in my head when I came up with it. It made it sound like some kind of weird cult.
Jeez, the org.
There you go.
Firm. I like The Firm. Have you ever read that book?
The Firm. I have not, nor have I seen the movie. I do remember the band, however, with Robert Plant and a bunch of random people.
I remember that. There was a movie shot on that book, right, Harold?
Yes.
With Tom Cruise.
I remember that.
And I generally can't stand books or movies about attorneys, but I love that book. And by the way, The Firm, wasn't that The Lights Are On and You're Not Home? Isn't it a song? No, that was...
Oh, what the song? I don't know. They had a hit that I recall, and their album did pretty well. And I had their album, and I don't remember anything about it, including the hit.
Who was on the film? Robert Plant,
Paul Rogers was in it.
Who else?
The Firm. I don't remember who else. Well, and I only remembered when William Byrd said Paul Rogers was in there. So there's that. Anyway, let's talk about SD Hist because that's coming up. I want to focus on the online stuff, but of course we're going to mention the other 75 million events you got happening for the rest of the year here. So how do you manage the workload of running all this stuff, for one thing? I know you're not the only person involved, but I also know that Bobby was, sharing a bunch of the load too, and Bobby's unfortunately not with us anymore.
Yeah.
So
no, and props to Bobby for not just support, doing a lot of work, but also for being transformative in working with the organization. And we wouldn't be where we are now if it weren't for Bobby. But
wow,
we put it kind of makes me sad, Dan. I hear you. But a big part of who we are now is Bobby's legacy. And, he was just such a huge part of us and helping us think about things and do things. But you're right. There are a large number of people that are involved in SD Hist, and they do a ton of work. I do very little work.
That is absolutely fantastic to hear.
Yes, which is the way I want it. No, I don't. I do some easy stuff, and I run around and recruit people, and that's what I like to do. But there are just a ton of I could name names, but it won't do them justice. But Edgar Millick has been around for a long time, and he's the technology guy. So, it would be impossible to run 2 online conventions, plus our face-to-face conventions all have Discord servers that are very active pre-con. And that's, Edgar is the brains and the meat behind that. And he's incredible and just a real pleasure to work with. And then Jeff Dreher and Pratik Multani both work hard in working with the relationships with publishers. Less and less do we take free games from publishers. GMT, of course, supports us a good deal, but we don't, that way we don't want to be a burden on those with 4 cons a year. We don't want to be a burden. So those guys manage those relationships, and the goal is to get them integrated into the cons. So
hold on, Harold. Why would that be a burden when it's advertising for them?
Well, it is advertising, Dan,
well,
but
man.
Sometimes I don't know that they get anything in return.
Well,
Patrick's always there. By the way, Patrick Pence ran the most attended. I don't know if it's the most tickets sold to any single event was Patrick teaching Combat Commander. So
I thought you were going to say GCACW, and I'm disappointed.
And a big part of that, and
everybody.
So I'm going to name some of the board members of SD Hist, but it's people like Patrick that keep our product awesome. I mean, we've got over 40 events already scheduled for
how many?
This Saturday con, right? On the 8th, and I think it'll almost double between now and the time we start.
Wow.
But so other board members are, let's see, I said Jeff and Pratik, Pat Wells, who's been with me from the very early days of, just trying to do the very first face-to-face cons at SD Hist, and a lovely guy that's just a tireless worker. Let's see, Andrew Buchholz is phenomenal, and he's the guy that gets the word out. And does it reliably and writes and is really the key editor for, along with Akar Bharadwaj, the key editor for Conflicts of Interest, and lots of great content there. Go to the SD Hist and Conflicts of Interest online. Tons of interesting. I think we kind of try to hold up our part of the bargain as being one of the few commentators on the culture of historical games, right? So not just the history and the games, which are all super important, but also we talk about the culture, which is one of the more controversial things to talk about, but all certainly very important. Joe Schmidt plays a huge role in setting things up and recruiting and of course, showing demos of his own games as much as he can. Dan Bullock is another board member that does much of the same. Dan, what can I help you with?
Harold, if you can expand on the culture, I want to know more about this culture thing you're talking about.
He'd like to get some of that action. So
I don't know that I can help with it. Dan,
is it available at retail?
Gary, did you notice that we can see Dan's trash can over his left shoulder? Is that
yes, and it's empty.
It's been there. It's been there forever. We're just lucky when he's not wearing it on his head. Okay.
And you know what, Harold? At one point, you actually had sent me a few years ago a bunch of T-shirts, and my favorite one, and the reason why I'm wearing this rag destroyed T-shirt is because one T-shirt you sent me was my favorite, and it was Wisconsin or something. Everybody hated me on it.
Ohio State.
Football team.
Ohio State.
That explains it.
No, man, it was that blue T-shirt was Wisconsin or something.
I would never send you the Emma T-shirt that you're talking about.
I hope not. I hope not. I glare angrily at the people wearing Mount Union T-shirts because from a distance you can't tell.
Yeah.
That was my favorite T-shirt. Anyways.
Well, I appreciate it. And so that's part of the culture, Dan. What do we wear? Right? All those things.
Oh, for God's sakes.
So you were asking about the culture, and the culture is like, how do we interface with each other? What do we play? Why do we play it? What are the trends going on? How do the social issues of the day affect what we do and how we do it? All of these things are cultural things that are really hard that most game magazines don't like to talk about, but we like to talk about. And, that's just part of who we are. So I think somebody has to play that role. That's kind of what we do. And we'll take any sides. Anybody can write anything and send it in to us. We'd love to, any content anyone says. Can you get rid of that Michigan word?
That's what you sent me, Harold.
Dan, I'm not sure what I sent you, but I
Harold,
guarantee
you sent me a
100% I did
Michigan
not send you a
t-shirt,
Michigan t-shirt.
and I wore it till it was like this.
All your t-shirts look like that from what I could tell.
I'm wondering again if that's a can or if that's a Canadian toilet.
I guarantee it's not Dan's amazing toilet, because now we got to talk about that.
Do you want to hear about my amazing toilet?
Yeah, I haven't, but I have.
Oh, you've heard of it?
So Dan, that's
it is globally famous.
That's the board of SD Hist. And then, there are a handful of people that that work with us very closely that may join the board soon. Guys like Shane Balloon and Bruce Garrick and Mike Zillablitz, who's been really active, and actually is going to host and MC or at least in part MC the big GMT event at the.
I like that guy.
He's awesome. We love him. Yeah, everybody.
I like that guy.
And then we've got then we have a whole board of advisors from Candace.
How'd that get there? Sorry about that. Hold on, let me just remove that.
There we go.
Okay.
Enough said.
Everything is so political with you guys. It's ridiculous.
Yes, Michigan is very political.
It's ridiculous.
I agree.
Do you not have a sports team you care about, Dan?
Yeah, but Gary Bettman won't allow my sports team to be on the NHL, which is called the Nordiques, the Quebec Nordiques. You hear me, Harold?
Did they throw them out of the league? What happened?
No, they turned into the Avalanche or something, and then
so the team's not there anymore.
No, because American money talks.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure it's whatever happened with the Nordiques. I'm pretty sure it's Michigan's fault. So we'll just leave it at that. So anyway, moving on.
So the advisory board plays a big role too in supporting us and giving us advice and helping us with the wins and recruiting and everything. So that's another big group, right? As I said, Candace and Liz Davidson and David Thompson and Volko and Kai Jensen and too many to name.
Those are huge names.
Yeah, and it's just awesome to have them available and to give us counsel. And then tons of other people. Mark Herman shows up at every event. He's predictable and
he's not exactly local either. So
no.
So Harold, Mark's in the chat tonight, but Dan, so be on your best behavior, okay?
Yes, I'm on my best. Harold, look, if I say anything that's disrespectful, please just shut me up. This and that. But with all due respect,
well, you already have said something disrespectful, so I would like to shut you up.
It's a word that started with M, so we won't be saying it again. We don't want to get demonetized after all. There you go. Perfect.
But Harold, this entity you're building up because it's your baby, right? And I call it Harold's baby every time I say SD Hist Con. Now, is there a reason why you want it so, and for lack of better word, corporate? For lack of better word.
It is a not-for-profit corporation now, Dan. In the last year, we've turned it into a 501c4. So it's a not-for-profit, and we had to put some structure around it. First of all, I as much as it will make you all sad, I will not live forever. And so, I want a lot of us to own it, not just me. And so that's why we have a board of directors. There we go. There's a man, suspender boy. I love it.
It sounds like a commercial. It's always fun to go to SD Hist Con. Mark Herman. It's like, seriously, Mark, you could do better than that.
It's a lot like the YMCA in that respect.
For God's sakes, come on, Mark.
So that cost me $100 and a copy of Flashpoint South China Sea.
Well, that's not a bad price for a Mark Herman endorsement, I would say.
No, that's cheap.
Have you seen his book is out and now on P500, by the way?
And already has hit its number in a week, 5 days or however long it took.
Yeah, it's because people were sleeping.
I was talking to him on the phone the other day and I said, "Hey, Mark, I see you're over 300." And he said, "I'm over 450."
It's got it. It's got it on his smartwatch apparently. So, and I don't blame him.
That's
Jeff Baylor,
fun,
this
though.
is actually no one from Ohio confuses the two. The Ohio State University was founded in 18 whatever as the Ohio State University. So it's actually always been part of the name. So, and
I don't know if that's the story, but I'm not going to question it. I like
that's
that
what they
story.
told me when I got there. So that is the official story.
It was founded as Ohio A&M.
Yes, as a land grant with the rest of the land grant, the federal land grant universities. That's absolutely right. So there you go.
That's hilarious.
There you go. I told you he's got it pulled up. He keeps hitting refresh on it. So
when you do your cons, do you go to the East Con also as much as okay, so do you have time to play any games?
I try to play one or two. I don't play a lot. But I usually run an event or two teaching something that I know or that I'm fond of or that I designed, right? So that's a part of it. There we go. David Thompson.
Mr. David is here.
That's another $100 in Flashpoint right there.
This guy, David Thompson, who is he?
He's the handsomest man in Ohio from what I hear.
This guy's an illusion.
So young and virile. It's just amazing. Except that he didn't show up at Buckeye Game Fest, but stuff happens too. So
I swear to God, David Thompson.
David's got good reasons if he doesn't show.
Good reasons.
But the thing about it, Dan, is that while I am the pretty face, there's just a ton of people that all have a common interest, and we meet on Wednesday evenings, and we have great conversations and great ideas flow around, and it's just awesome. It's the coolest group to be around that I've been around in my lifetime to work on stuff.
Well, what's this Wednesday evenings? What do you mean by Wednesday evenings?
Did I say that out loud?
Yes.
So we have our staff meeting on Wednesday where we all get together, whoever wants to, whoever's around, right? And it's awesome.
Believe it or not, Dan, for a complicated and huge organization like this, they may have to have meetings and committees and stuff. So,
what's the matter with you, man?
I'm just saying. So in terms of the organization, though, I mean, you went from, having the one event out in San Diego, and now you've got 2 in-person events and 2 online events. Is there like a larger strategy for convention building? And I'm curious about online conventions too. And was that, did online conventions start happening strictly because of COVID? Was that something that was in the air before that? I feel like it was, but maybe certainly not to the scale that we've seen it in the last few years. But it's not a phenomenon that's gone away either.
Yeah, like so many things, Gary, we just didn't, there were a lot of stuff we hadn't thought about until we were forced home. And then, teaching, right, online was something we talked about, but never really happened. And then we were forced into it. Suddenly we all learned and became an exciting option for us. So that's, that was a big piece. But yeah, it was COVID, right? And I, again, I give props to Brant and his crew. They probably came up with the idea first, but we all kind of started doing those, and because we wanted to get together, right? It was you can't forget how sad and how hard it was for all of us to be separated and not know what the world was coming to. So it was a wonderful thing. And Jeff, how hard is it to get cleared for the War College? Jeff, I'm not asking for your answer to this question, but if you're not a convicted felon, I think you will get through.
So Jeff,
that's the truth, right? That if you're not a convicted felon, then everybody just sort of passes through.
What if you're a foreign national, though?
Well, then we use the back of Harold's trunk entry method.
Okay, that works. That works.
I believe it.
We did have a handful of foreign nationals at the last, and it's possible. It's a little more involved, but not much.
Yeah, I know it's not in all seriousness, but I got to make fun of the Canadians. It's not our regularly scheduled show if I haven't made fun of the Canadians at least once.
I have to make fun of the Canadians.
And you guys are both invited. You know that.
Of course.
Thank you.
Course. Well,
Harold,
we'll apparently be having another conversation sometime around next Friday or Saturday too. So, I'll be in the loop on that. I'll actually have to look at the
wasn't
events list.
invited. I don't know about this.
Oh, shut up, Dan. You have an open invitation everywhere, as you know.
Harold, in all honesty, when all this online gaming started, I thought it was like, pshaw, you know what I mean? This and that. But now it's a big thing. Now it's a thing.
Yeah, I think our approach to all this stuff is that it's 1,000 experiments, not convicted. Definitely not convicted, Todd. I think it was everything's an experiment, and we do about 10 or 12 different things that are different each convention. And if something catches on, we put more resources onto it. If it doesn't work, we cut it off, and it tends to grow. We're pushing 250 people at the last online convention.
Bloody hell!
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's a wonderful. Now we run it from AM in Europe to evening in California, and we have people that are in and out the whole time.
That's fantastic.
And unlike a physical event, right? A physical event, you have to. There's a capacity, right? How many people can hear Mark Herman talk about? I mean, everybody wants to, but really, 10 people around it. But there's some questions necessary there.
Mark's a heckler today.
He's giving me trouble. Well, Gary's facilitating it too.
That's true. I am a facilitator of trouble, as you know.
That's correct. It doesn't require secret or any sort of secrets. But I will tell you a secret if you come to the convention. And if you have clearance to get on to any military base already, then that clearance will also work at the War College.
Now, Harold, if I have a murder charge in Canada, does that carry over in the States?
Is that a serious question? Is what's running through Harold's head right now? He's like, Dan, you're killing me here.
I want to know.
I say this. You see how difficult it is to work with this, Harold. I mean,
but I must admit, Harold, you look beautiful. You know that?
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's what my mom said. I saw my mom this weekend. She said the same thing.
That's just great.
So are there moms are really good at that. Are there any? I noticed you've got like a bunch of state of the company seminars and stuff like that. There's one from Blue Panther, and presumably Steve will be doing that. You've got one from Fellowship of Simulations, which I feel like we might be paying significantly more attention to in the coming years than we have up to now here in the U.S. Are there any specific like event highlights that you're particularly excited to be able to help facilitate? Yeah, besides everything, right? Because there's all kind of cool stuff here.
That's the hard part, right? I can go through the list of big names. I was just sketching down some things I wanted to tell you about. That new stuff from David Thompson, new stuff from John Butterfield, right? He's going to walk through a away team for the first time in public. So, which is awesome, right? And everybody's pumped about that. So, and John's awesome, and we love John.
Oh yeah.
Mark Herman's going to talk about Rebel Fury, but he'll also give us some background on what's coming. Fred Serval's going to demo Jest of Robin Hood. Just a lot of great stuff going on. I've got a spreadsheet here that tells me which sessions have sold the most tickets so far. So I can kind of go through that, which is kind of interesting. The most tickets so far have gone to Grant from Pushing Cardboard, who's going to interview the Volko.
Excellent.
And talk about, some of the new stuff. And of course, Volko will be sharing. I don't know if he's shared public. Yeah, I agree with that, David Thompson. I don't know if Volko has shared with the public much about Coast Watchers outside Circle DC, but that's put together and looks unbelievable. And then he has a follow-on that I don't think he's ready to show yet. That is going to be, and it's in my podcast. I did a podcast with him recently, but
I saw
in that podcast he talked about it's basically Verdun and the battle for intelligence during that time. And I'm sure I'm wrong and I'm mispronouncing stuff, but that's why we have Volko here. John Butterfield's event is second, of course, and him talking about away team. And then Mark Herman's events are both super, super high.
Shockingly.
Let's see. La Desponda 1937, which is Pablo Lopez's game. Riccardo Massini is doing a panel on historical games and what war games takes from all sorts of different forums. Uli Blenneman is doing an event in Europe, which is going to be an interview with Matthias Kramer.
Oh, cool.
On Lenin's legacy. Great. Matthias Kramer was at our November convention. And great fun to meet him and his wife. And, great to see him linking up. He's got a GMT game as well. That is
which I misremembered on last night's show as having been from somebody else. So, but way to rub it in, Harold. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I need to point those things out. Reinforce.
The amount of brain power that's in all the names you said. These guys could write a new constitution, for God's sakes. Seriously.
That's the next con.
It's there you go. That's 2025 itinerary item right there. Thank you so much, John Stanley. And I'm not sure, is the Royal Navy's code breaking understood in the causation of the Battle of Jutland? I don't know. Good question.
Look, here's my response to that. And Gary, I don't know if you know, but I promised via X. I don't like to call it X. I still like to call it Twitter. But I noticed,
I'm still calling it Twitter. Yeah, everybody else is also still calling it Twitter.
Sort of pornographic site or something. I don't really.
Or something.
Or something. On Twitter, I told the community that whichever question made me look the smartest would receive a copy of the Mark Herman's Rebel Fury.
Well, this is a pretty good one. So
it's a good question, but and it makes the asker look smart, but I have no idea how to answer it.
You're the best. Well,
there was a battle there. There was Admiral Jellicoe was there. There was a Captain Jellicoe in Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's pretty much all I know.
There was a lot of guns.
Many guns. Many boom boom.
Yeah. No, John, that's an excellent question, and I'm glad Gary got some payment out of that, but I can't make that look good.
No idea.
And by the way, if I don't look smart answering any of these questions, Gary, you're just going to have to pick somebody at random for us.
That's all right. I can deal with that. So,
Harold.
So here's one though. I'm pretty sure the answer to this is going to be yes, though, right? I mean, you know.
So the event, the participant numbers don't really matter at these online cons,
right?
So what we've done is we've really jacked up the available tickets for each event. It'll take as many people as want to come. And the only reason people schedule is to keep their schedule in order, right? And in addition, so it's not really displacing anybody or no set limits. If 50 people want to watch, the Volco talk about Coast Watchers, then they can. And that's, one of the great joys. The other cool thing is that you can come into that event halfway, whether you have a ticket or not, and get the same seating as you would if you'd had the ticket started. So the tickets really are less important at these conventions. What they do allow is they allow us to schedule, our own personal schedule. You kind of know what that is now if you schedule the events. And secondly, the people that are running the events know if anybody's going to show up and order of magnitude and stuff like that.
That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about it.
Talking about
because on the one hand, you don't have to worry about people you could physically fit in the room. So at the War College at Origins, for example, it's in a pretty small room. They'll have trouble accommodating more than maybe 20 people in that room. That's not really a concern for an online convention. And I'd be shocked if...
I would say even tighter, Gary. I mean, how many people can listen to Mark talk and move counters, right? I mean, it's really a small group.
Oh, more than 20, I'll tell you that.
But at an online convention, you can fit any number of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the thing that Mark's talking about is that there's a capacity limit to Discord. So, for some of the mega events, Mark Herman's, Patrick Pence's last time, Volco's is always a big event. John Butterfield's will be big. GMT is going to have a state of the company event that they just announced.
Mm-hmm.
It will be massive and have a whole host of designers over a couple of hours, and it will be awesome. But those events, if there are more than 50 people, then we have to go to a different alternative forum so that we can share the screen. And it's just a limit to Discord, but we can, we can fix it. Discord's perfect for us because the price is right, which is free.
Yeah. You pay them if you want, but nobody does.
Yeah. There's plenty of platforms that allow it. And we do pay for a subscription to certain things, and that increases room size and things like that. But, usually only the month that we have the convention.
So then there is a limit to Discord, 50 people.
Well, there's a limit to screen sharing, but what we would do then is move it to a room where we have certain rooms that are really kind of arenas, and in those rooms Mark could talk to 250 people.
Okay, great. We
just have a limited number of those.
Mm-hmm. StreamYard does the same thing, for the record, Dan. 10 people, I believe, is the limit on the plan I'm on anyway.
That's not bad.
Pretty sure is
on my plan.
Pretty sure is. I thought we were on the same plan, actually, but
you're on the pro plan, right?
I think so. Yeah.
No, I'm on the first tier plan.
Oh, okay. So the Dollar General of plans, then.
Yes.
So I can understand because it is fairly pricey. But thank you, Pat.
Listen, man, I pay 200 and something bucks a year, U.S. bloody currency.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's like $1 million in Canadian money.
Man,
so
I keep bothering Harold for handouts.
Yeah. So I'm finding the other thing with the online events is we ran into this at Origins. Actually, we decided, hey, we're eating a whole table with, I think it's Normandy 44. But we need like extra copies of the game because we can run 3 tables of it, right? When we run we can run it with 3 games, but we need 3 copies, right? You don't have to worry about that. Just doing it online via Vassal or Tabletop Simulator or Rally the Troops or whatever you're using, right?
And we're working on that aspect, right? I mean, we have the board game arena, Rally the Troops, and then the potential to use TTS or Vassal. And so, we've got some ideas and we're trying to improve that. Some people come to the convention thinking that we're going to play games. And so for those people, it would be nice to have some mechanism.
That's crazy.
Harold, logistically, instead of having a West and East con, why don't you do a mid-state massive war game con? Because that'll attract a hell of a lot of people.
Where would that be? Would that be like Iowa? You're trying to get me to do a con in
Iowa? No, Montreal would be good. Montreal.
Well, you guys already have a great convention.
Yeah, you were just there, Dan.
No, we do. We actually do. And the thing is, Harold, usually they invite designers, this and this and that. But I'm going to push to invite you, Harold. I swear to God. I'm going to push to invite Harold.
Well, Harold, you've got an open invitation to come join us at Buckeye Game Fest pretty much whenever you want. But it's not like you've never been to Columbus before, so you know where it's at.
Well, I love Columbus and still have a number of connections with the university. So would love to come up there to that or Origins or something, right?
Isn't that the murder state capital of the USA?
It's not that bad.
And
Artie, you're just making stuff up. The mushroom capital of the USA, Dan.
That's right.
Jesus.
Straight
what happened with ArtieCon? What happened with ArtieCon?
I'm not going to have the bandwidth to do it this year. That's all. There's too many things happening. But I'm doing my 2 remaining things this year. I might do an online thing, but my 2 remaining things this year that I'm planning are Origins, which is in a few weeks, and then SD Hist in November. So,
if California is like, man, it's like flying to Italy. You know what I'm saying? From me.
No, but you could go to, what is it, like 8-9 hours to get to Columbus from where you're at? Something like that. It's not that bad.
Driving.
Yeah, driving.
Yeah, and I'm talking about flying.
Well, then fly. That's fine. It's more expensive and takes just as long and is a much more stressful experience, in my opinion. But there you go.
Yeah, no, I can't handle stress.
Yeah, Dan, do you know where Montreal is? I'm just curious. This is the best question of the evening so far. I assume this must be directed to Dan.
Seriously, Mark?
I don't know if that's how Mark means it, but that's how I'm taking it.
Well, I don't know, Mark, but them's are fighting words.
And the answer is Montreal's right in the center of the map. That's what you should always say.
Yeah, It's like Rome. All roads lead to Montreal.
Have you ever seen a Chinese version of a world map?
Yeah, well, China's in the middle.
Where China's in the middle and everything else is on the side. And it blows your mind when you see it, but it makes perfect sense, right?
I've never seen it. I'm going to freak out.
We don't want you to freak out, Dan.
Yeah, don't freak out. That's messy, and you'll have to squeegee the camera off, and we don't want to deal with that right now.
Well, we'll just turn it off. We'll just delete them. So here's one of the great things that we've been doing with the online con is setting up a series of panels. And Dan Bullock has a really good panel set up for the convention, and limited to 250 people, by the way. And it includes Kevin Bertram, of course, of Fort Circle, Ted Densham, of course, of Catastrophe Games, and then the great Drew Worley, Spawn, or not Spawn, but I guess he's like a clone of Cole Worley.
I was about to ask.
Of Whirligig Games. They're going to discuss historical games, future designs and development, and how they find designs. And Dan Bullock, the great Dan Bullock, who a brilliant up-and-coming designer, is going to host that. So a lot of really cool panels are developing around the convention, and it's a great place for that. And again, that's part of the culture, Dan, is not just talking about my design or my demo. It's like, let's talk about how this stuff works and how we play together and why we wear mushroom hats.
I was actually going to make a point to mention the fairly expansive seminar track. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff going on here in addition to just demos and actual games, right? There's some panels with some people that I expect to be very insightful participants in those panels, including Dan and Tim, and I've never met Drew. But that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. We've threatened, Gary, to get some of you all that manage this epic organization called Charles S. Roberts to come on and talk to us about the award and the future and kind of what's coming from the award. So, hopefully, if you have time, I would love to work with you and anybody else from your org that wants to talk about it.
I wouldn't mind. I would not only not object to that, but I'd have to. I'd love some tips about how to get other people to do stuff. That'd be fantastic. So I think there could be a mutual learning thing where I give you like 5% new information that you hadn't heard before, and I just sit back here and just let the flood of knowledge and wisdom wash over me, so that I can lose fewer hair follicles between now and this time next year.
Harold, when you started the SD Hist, and it actually wasn't that long ago, am I right?
Yeah.
Now, do you have a goal in the future? Did you have some sort of like, I'm going to talk banker's talk, Harold, so I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Did you have a plan of action?
Plan of action. I love that. So the first thing we knew is that we wanted to increase the accessibility of games to everybody, right? So, and that's not a woke concept, right? That's just saying, man, this stuff we do is cool, and we'd love to grow this hobby.
Yes.
And make sure that we can get as many people in. And I'm not, again, it's not about being woke, but it's more about, I just think it's awesome, and I want to get as many people into this hobby as we can. And it turns out that there are a bunch of other people that had a common interest in that message with me, right? And so that's what we all got together to do. I don't do most of this work, right? So it's just people that have a common interest in growing the hobby. And the thing that the process that was real, Dan, was that our view of let's just do a bunch of experiments. And if it works, then we'll replicate it. And if it doesn't work, we'll cut it off. and we just we're always talking. I mean, we talk in that vernacular, right? What experiments? We'll just do it this way and it'll be an experiment. And then we'll shift right after we learn. And that's kind of where we've ended up. It's a really great opportunism, a bunch of interesting collaboration and ideas. And that's how it developed. There's not really a master plan. I mean, I think we all want to continue with an award, like, the Summit Award. We may even add a category to that really talks about things that we're interested in. And I just said one category, Gary.
I'd love to have one category to worry about, Harold. That's all I got to say about that.
I bet you would.
Just one category just seems like vacation to me. Okay, one category. It's like Fantasy Island. What's your fantasy? Just one category to deal with, Mr. Rourke. And thank you.
It's funny,
the dream of having an award that doesn't have the history, Gary, that you carry around on your back is I mean, it's wonderful history, but it also
it's because he's nuts.
Well, yeah, but still.
Oh, sorry. but Harold, your experiments, there's no misses. It's been a hit. Every single whatever. It's just a hit. So you're like what is it called? Was it Mother Goose or the goose that laid the golden egg?
Yeah, we are Mother Goose. That's how we think about ourselves.
A goose, yeah.
Always with the clucking.
Dan, there are plenty of mistakes and things that we do wrong, and we learn about it. And I don't like to talk about those things, but we all know what they are inside, and we've learned from them. So that's a part of it. But we're just charged about stuff, and we work really hard, and it's a bunch of smart people, and it just feeds on itself, right? It creates its own momentum, and it's exciting. So love it. We're excited to have the award. We're excited to have a mouthpiece where we can put writing, right? And then we're also excited to have the cons that also create their own content and their own culture. And, that's a great place for us to be. Now, what we didn't talk about, Dan, is we didn't talk about the results, right? So we use a lot of our money for scholarships to make sure that people that can't afford to be at our cons can be there.
Bloody
and
hell.
That's an important part of what we do, a really important part, right? Because our organization and our cons wouldn't be as robust at the War College or in San Diego if we didn't put great care into helping people we really want to be at the con to get there. So that's where a lot of our money goes. And then the other place that a ton of our money goes is to support organizations that we think help us communicate the message. So, for example, we were the largest single financial provider to the Zenobia Award, the first Zenobia Award. And I hope that will be the case for the latest, right? That's our plan. And that's something we're really proud of. And, other organizations that are similar or trying to advance the hobby all work for us.
Harold, I met some guy at the Stack Academy Con, and I've seen him a few times, but this time I actually went 2 days, and I tried to contain my hyperactivity. But anyway,
spoke to actual humans.
Yes, and I actually did an interview with Jason. What's his face?
Matthews.
Yeah, and no volume, which was a shame because it was a great interview. And Harold, you were mentioned 1 billion times. 1 billion.
Well, Jason's a great guy too to talk to.
What a nice guy.
I had some brief conversations with Jason at Origins last year, or the year before, I forget, and I felt like I was like learning, just being in the same conversational circle as Jason Matthews.
The thing is that I'm a musician, right? So it's music in my head. So I'm sitting down with this guy, Jason Matthews, who's got one of the greatest design games, whatever we can call it, a war game, whatever. I'm not going to get into that.
Well, it's getting inducted into the Academy of Adventure Gaming Arts and Design this summer. So,
yes. And the thing is that that's not even his day job. So I just found out
he's got a big. He's got a big boy. He's got a big boy day job.
Dan, What hobby are you talking about? Everybody's got a day job here, unless they're retired for their day job.
He's got a big boy job.
Yeah, he does.
No, but seriously, anyway, I got a big boy job. I'm a janitor. Without me, you ain't clean. So I'll tell you right now. But anyways, Harold, I met this guy, Sebastien, and I don't know if this might interest you.
Before you leave Jason Matthews, let me say one thing about him. He's also on our board of advisors, and he is a great counsel to me, right? I love spending time with Jason Matthews for all the reasons you just mentioned, but he is on the cutting edge of thought and ideas and culture of what we do, and he's brilliant, and I love Jason. And that's recorded, and there's volume here, right? So he can hear that I said this.
Right. And the thing is that it's funny because Jason never talked down to us. He was involved in the conversation. He went with what's what. And my ridiculousness, he went with it, and it was a lot of fun. Anyway,
that feels like a criticism of me, Dan.
And Jason goes out of his. I would consider it going out of his way to help out folks too. I could think of several people who have been not like necessarily formally involved at a high level at the Charles S. Roberts Awards, and Jason has been as helpful as any three of them.
I was going to create a skit, but I didn't have the cojones to ask Jason because we were right next to one of Canada's premier strip joints. And I wanted Jason to walk out of the door and just say, "Hey, what's up?" But I didn't. Okay, it's
Dan, if this clip ends up in the CSR Awards show, I'm going to drive up and friggin' murder you. For one thing, excellent, Harold. Very, very good choice on your part. I've just reacquired a copy myself after foolishly parting with it many years ago.
Just got it unpunched, unplayed.
Outstanding.
What I was trying to say without being, diplomatically shoved off.
Oh, well, by all means, continue. Pray continue.
So Harold, there's this guy. His name is Sebastien. I forget his last name. Maybe Levac or something. But he's got a master's in game design. And he teaches, I think, at the bachelor's level, or maybe even at the master's level, in a university of Abitibi-Témiscamingue, that's in Quebec. And
in case anyone was confused about where that was,
could have been Wisconsin.
It could have been or Minnesota.
So
you never know.
Harold, this guy is a wealth of information. There's. When I say a bachelor's course, I'm talking about like 101 history, 201 history, 301 history, game design, art, development, all that. I'm gonna have an interview with that guy, and I'm just gonna let you know. Listen in, and I think this guy's a wealth of information, man, and I think it would be an asset.
Well, I would love an introduction, Dan. And I also think you've got to get an interview of Jason Matthews on the board.
We try.
We're working on that. We actually had Jason lined up, and I could not make the show due to technical problems. That was the week I missed. So I'm backing you up here, Dan. We're working on Jason. We'll get Jason sooner or later.
Yeah, I gave him. I'm not going to say anything.
So, Harold, you mentioned folks helping to get the message out, though. If you were to sum up the message of the SD Hist organization, though, what would that message be? Is it something that would fit in a tweet, for example?
Well, if you were to look at the website at SD Hist, I would encourage you to go to sdhist.com, which I'm going to do, but if I don't misspell it. Building a diverse and supportive historical gaming community.
Okay, well, that was easy.
Yeah,
that's right up there. You're not hiding it or anything.
No, it's not. There it is, right? And again, that's not saying. I know that message sometimes is interpreted as saying that somebody's doing something bad or wrong or poorly. All I'm saying is that all we're saying is that there are tons of people that would like to play the games.
Hold on a second.
And we're doing everything we can to pull them in.
What's bad about this statement?
Nothing. That's the point.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's nothing. My God, conspiracies abound.
Well, I don't want to get into that. I don't, because then I might have to go off on a 10-minute rant about that, and I don't really feel like having the energy to do that right now.
We don't
So
know who killed the Kennedys. It's the Italians.
But what I would say, and I agree with you, Gary. I don't want to talk about the any of the negatives, but I've been part of the problem in that sometimes I'm too critical of who we all are, and that's not the message, right? That's not the idea. That's not my intention. And all I want and all we want is that everybody's got a shot at conventions and games and feels comfortable and enjoys them and loves them as much as I do, right? And as that you two all do as well, right?
Mm-hmm. I see no room for anybody to disagree with that. Let me put it that way.
Man, why is it even an issue? That's what I don't understand.
Well, that's another show. That'll be a show that I'm not here, Dan.
Exactly.
Us Canadians, we're loving people, except we beat the crap out of you Americans in 1812.
I don't know, man. I'm watching the Canadians on TikTok, and they some of them seem a bit angry, but then they say sorry at the end. So I think I'm not sure how to take it.
And War of 1812, we fought ourselves within this country, and that's why we didn't beat you on Lake, whatever it was, Wobegon or whatever it was we fought over. But but I do think, look, you guys are lovers, not fighters.
Yeah, it depends.
But you're also fighters.
I hope that as people with profiles, we can do more good than harm, right? Nobody's perfect. Nobody gets it right all the time. I screw tons of stuff up. But if we're trying to get better, then I'm satisfied with that. Maybe I'll be appreciative of faster progress. I think we would all sometimes be we would like progress to be faster. But if we're trying and we're trying to make the space better for everybody, and to be honest, I think we have a pretty great even space right now. I mean, we have just so many awesome people that are involved and so many awesome things to do and see and play. There's no reason for us to get bent about stupid stuff. So
why should we fight with each other, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing in that. And I'd like to address Jeff's question here in a minute, but I do want to say one more thing. That's an interesting example. I would implore people to go to Board Game Geek and look at Fred Serval's games. And what you'll do is if you scan through Fred Serval's games ratings, what you will find is that there are 3 or 4 accounts and they hit at the same time, but they all rate Fred a 1. And it's usually when Fred says something that's controversial, right? Which we've seen, right? And happens. And I say things controversial too.
He's European, man. He's a Frenchman.
But here's the point. What in the world is this attack on his game ratings for?
Mm-hmm.
It's the craziest thing. So the way to solve that is for all of us to go there and rate everything 10s. But Jest of Robin Hood will get that anyway. But those, the negatives are already on Jest of Robin Hood. It's just quite amazing. And why? What's the point in trying to hurt Fred by giving him a poor rating on a game? It's the most infantile stuff I've ever seen.
And I was going to mention
that was the exact word I used for it at the time, and I was not the only one to use that term.
And I was going to mention Fred in your organization because Fred is part of your organization.
Fred's an advisor, yes.
And now Ricardo, is it now Ricardo?
Ricardo is not technically on our advisory board, but we'd like him to be, and he's awesome. And,
Ricardo is great. I will 100% agree with Harold on this topic. So,
and having Fred, first of all, Fred is a super nice guy.
Yeah. He's
sarcastic. He's got a dry sense of humor like I have, I guess. And look, he's European, man. I guess we can't get the full gist of what he's saying.
I mean, I'm to take that at face value, I'm disinclined to chalk that kind of stuff up to like just cultural misunderstandings. But some people are going to try and address problems in different ways than other people are going to try to tackle those problems. And I think we should try and really try to figure out where somebody's really coming from and how they really feel before we jerk our collective knees and go rate everybody's games a 1, because that's just silly.
Thank you.
So anyway, on to Jeff Baylor's fabulous question here.
Yeah, no, Jeff, that's an excellent question, and I think that the complexity of social media is going to be with us for a while, and that complexity is that there's a certain crowd that's on Facebook, for example. There's a certain crowd that's on X. There's a certain crowd that's on Instagram, and it almost there are different characteristics of each of those groups. So I think we're just going to have to be fluid. We touch a lot of those as SD Hist in pushing the message and telling the stories, and we'll just keep monitoring it and go to where the crowd is. The other group that is that I believe the other org that's clearly social media in my mind is Board Game Geek, and I think as an organization we don't do enough on Board Game Geek as a social media presence.
You're talking about as war gamers?
That too. I don't think that's what Harold's saying, but I think that too, right? Yeah. There are some roadblocks in interacting with Board Game Geek that aren't like intentional roadblocks that anybody's decided to set out in front of wargamers necessarily, but just like how do you interface with that site in certain respects, right? If you're, for example, running an award, who do you talk to about that, right? We would have no clue if Jason Matthews hadn't stepped up and done 96% of that legwork for us. So you've got to kind of know how to work within that ecosystem too. But I think you can't. I think you can't ignore any of these social media outlets. I mean, maybe some of them are so small that they can be disregarded, but all the ones that Jeff mentions here, I think you have to. I think if you're doing it right, you probably need to be on all of them.
Yeah.
You need to be plugged in, and as the community grows and changes, then we'll move more efforts one way or the other. So yeah, I'm a fan of all or supportive of all. I spend most of my time on Instagram, or not Instagram, but what do we call it? Twitter. I used to. But I don't. It has the people that I follow and listen to, and again, I'm not drummed up into the politics of any individual that may run an organization. I do a lot of things that are run by, I participate in a lot of things that are run by billionaires that I don't necessarily agree with, from Amazon to Facebook to Twitter to, you name it.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? This is something this is a good point. Maybe we should try and I don't have friggin' time to write a blog on BGG personally, but I think it's great that Carl is, and I know a lot of people who read Carl's blog, right? So that's a good start. It's an entryway. You could put a blog on Consim World too, and then everyone will keep asking you how to find it. So
yeah, I didn't say Consim World. Just FYI.
I didn't either. And I love John. I love John. Like dearly. We all love John, but it's hard to find stuff on there.
Yeah, so he's a class guy. But I think there we go. There's Carl.
There's Carl. Yeah.
I didn't realize he looked like that, but it's good to know.
Well, that says this. That's you might notice that is a false mustache, actually.
Okay. Sans mustache.
Yeah.
But I think BGG is very much game focused. So if you can get out a message that's game focused, I think you can get a lot of attention there. But
we've had a similar I don't want to say argue, but let's say conversation about Origins over the years about it started out as a wargaming event. Now it's very much not a wargaming event. Wargamers are very much the minority. And a lot of wargamers are like, they don't want to even have the conversation anymore. I think it's the wargamers that gave up on the place, right? There's stuff there for them to do. Yes. So, if we want to see representation at big public facing events like that, then we wargamers, meaning players and publishers and designers and all those people, really need to step up and show up, right? So not everybody's going to be able to. Everybody understands that. Not everybody is lucky enough to spend a glorious 5 days in sunny Columbus, Ohio in June every year.
Well, what's happening then?
Origins.
For God's sakes. There's like 50,000 people.
It's probably not even going to be 19,000 this year.
Dan just says nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, Harold, we have been on for an hour. Hang around for just a minute. You got one last one, Dan? Go ahead.
Wait.
Real fast.
I didn't say enough.
Real fast.
I want to say, Harold, that I thought you were an American capitalistic get what you can get right now. You know, Harold, I'm wrong. You're actually a great human being. What the hell is that noise?
That's my. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I'll explain it after the show.
You're actually a great human being, Harold.
Of course he is. We don't have any. All of our guests are great people, Dan. We don't invite them on if they're not.
I'm not picking.
Or at least not twice.
You're blaming me about this now. Now I'm going to be a target. I mean, who's better than?
I'd like to see Dan.
Dan, you were a target already.
Dan, I'd like to see a show where you rank your favorite guests, top to bottom for the whole year.
No, Harold, it wouldn't be fair. You'd be there all the time. Number one,
Harold, that's a dreadful idea. Terrible idea.
Hey, Gary, one last thought. We got
Yes.
to pick somebody at random. Would you like to do that online, or would you like to do it after?
Let's do it after.
what are we talking about?
So Gary will do it after. Gary will report, and then whoever it is, get in contact with me. More to follow.
All right, I'll figure it out. There'll be a prize for folks. We'll figure it out. I will make a random determination based on the chat in the next couple of minutes here, folks.
Telling me
we are out of time. Well, it was a Harold thing, so don't worry about it. We'll figure it out.
Harold, just to let you know what Jason and I and the people were talking about is when I approached Jason, I had your game. I had your game with me, and I said, "It's great to meet you, Harold. I've always wanted to meet you." And I said, "Could you please sign the rule book?" And man, he signed it.
Did he sign it, Harold?
I don't know, man. I was too drunk.
So good. Hey, Chet.
Hold on a second.
What's going on?
Here's our winner, Meandering Mike.
It's always that time.
That's because Mike is a doer and not a talker. Mike is involved. Yes, highly involved. Our randomly generated selection is the 39th post in tonight's chat, which is from Mr. Meandering Mike.
Congrats,
so
Mike.
Harold will have something for you.
Reach out to me through some mechanism, Mike, and we'll get you a game.
I will, Harold. I will send you Mike's email address. So.
You know, the thing is, Mike, if this was in Canada, we'd be sending you an ounce of weed or something.
For some random mushrooms Dan found in the woods. Let's not eat those without the anti-venom handy. All right, folks, we're out of time. I want to thank Harold. Thanks, Dan, and everybody have a great week. Harold, hang around for just a minute if you can.
Big move. Big win. The moose is loose. Big moves. Big win. The moose is loose. Big move.